Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the show in which I find out about history and borders and how we all hate each other, I guess. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you, I was about to say, and happy Halloween. But I'll do that now. Happy Halloween, everybody. It's the 31st. It's time for all the tricks and treats and ghosts and goblins. And why not a TEDXcellence? Hello, everyone. It is Saturday. Scary Saturday. A little bit pedestrian, I suppose, but there you go. Boy, we got a whole bunch of stuff going on today, don't we? Speaking of which, things going on, you might notice, if you are one of the people out there who actually watches this stream and not just listens to it, slight change to the screen there, as in the screen over the presentation. So, just as a programming note, the previous TEDx, last one I did, got copyright claimed by TED Talks for approximately a minute's worth of footage of the TEDx or the TED Talk. Apologies, it was a TED Talk. And that video is no longer viewable. It may be viewable in the future, I hope, but it was taken down because of 1 minute worth of footage. Now, I don't know why, given how many of these I've done without any problems to this point, because I think it's fairly obvious that what I'm doing is commentary and critique, and certainly constitutes a transformative work, given how much of the original content actually makes up the whole of these live streams. However, in an effort to further attempt to show that what I am doing is transformative, I have put up a slightly opaque glass screen type cover over the portion of the screen that shows the presentation itself. So you see that little reflection there like it's an actual TV screen. Yeah. I tested out the opacity of that yesterday, and I think this is a good medium. I think you can still see it, get all the action, but it still looks different enough from the original. So if there's any arguments about what I'm doing or the fair use boundaries within which I attempt to stay, this only helps. If it's too dark, if it's too opaque, I can lighten it up a bit, but this is just the maiden voyage of that. But that's all preamble. Who's joining me for this experiment today? Why, that would be Matt Barnes. Hello. Wade Wilson. Hello. Keenan. Hello. Zalbla. Hello. Raziel. Dos Vidania. Sure. Blind Press. Hello. Functional. Hello. Mike R. Hello. Poker Pierce. Hello. Mirai Vegeta. Hello. Corey Suzuki. Hello. Black Belt for Christ. Hello. Your boy Pat. Hello. Zeke Weiss. Hello. Emperor W.R. Costin. Hello. Gunnar Anderson. Hello. Viewer of Ashmedai. Hello. Taslim Hassan. Hello. Blake Hanley. Hello. Roger Reynolds. Hello. Cynic. Hello. Brad Young. Hello. No One Nowhere, hello. Roasted Opinions, hello. And then chat jump, because of course it does. Quinn the Cultist, hello. Sabian 187, hello. Monsent, hello. Eric, hello. The Luke Skywalker 2, hello. Green Death, hello. Shady Grin, hello. Gulf City, Peterbilt, Confederacy 379, hello. Atheist Icon, hello. Robert Lapine, hello. Revenus, hello. Ebony Williams, hello. Robert Pincus, hello. Swirly, hello. Grant Miller, hello. I think that's everybody at present. If I missed you, I apologize, but we need to get into this because it's very important we get into this, because we need to talk about how xenophobia is in America, how we got here, and what's at stake. Xenophobia in America. Is there xenophobia in America? Yes. There's xenophobia in America. I stipulate to that fully. Does it overtake all of our thoughts, politics, and everything? No, but there are people out there who are certainly xenophobic. You know who else is xenophobic? Some portion of the population of every country on the planet. But I'm sure we're going to get more than that, because what promises to be here is a history lesson. Because our speaker, as the opening screen tells us, is a historian. So I'm looking forward to being educated on all of the things that make us xenophobic today, in the exact same way that the country might have used to have been under certain laws. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. And thank you, the gayest person on YouTube. This super chat has been claimed by copyright. Okay. Well, with that being said, guys, get your bingo cards ready. Link is in the description. Let's see. This one clocks in at just over 16 minutes, so we better get moving. As usual, I will start off with a couple of seconds for sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed.
We need to talk about xenophobia.
Oh, boy, my favorite subject. No, actually, it's not my favorite subject. I'm not quite sure if I have a favorite subject. And truth be told, when I hear the prefix xeno, more often than not, I think of xenomorphs. You know, the aliens from Alien and Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, Alien versus Predator, that kind of thing. Yeah. I can hear it just fine, says Monsent. Up North Steve says, good. Green Death says, that was terrible applause. Well, I do know why the applause was terrible. I know why the applause is terrible because in chopping this video for viewing, I did get to see the last image of the video before it closes out, not the audio. And it may actually show us over the course of the video why that applause was so lousy. I know I'm building it up. It's really nothing and probably very explicable, especially if you can see the audience there and what might possibly be on their faces. Anyway, let's proceed.
The fear and hatred of foreigners. It's a fear that's so great, we're supposed to run away as fast as we can and do whatever's necessary to protect ourselves from those dangerous foreigners.
Well, it all depends on the context. And if it's an irrational fear, then sure. But that's what a phobia is. It is usually characterized as an irrational fear. So, yes, xenophobia, simply being afraid of someone who is different or from the outside for no justifiable reason, not the healthiest way to live your life. It's true.
It's like it's about us versus them.
Well, that is generally the case if you're talking about xenophobia, yes. It's usually the case if you're talking about any clearly and often irrationally delineated lines between demographics or ideas or whatever. But yeah, sure. Tell me more.
And it's more than just prejudice or bigotry. In the United States, it's been built into our laws, our politics, and even the very definition of who counts as an American.
If you're going to say, and I'm only guessing here, if you're going to say that someone who is against illegal immigration is thus a xenophobe, I'm going to disagree with you. And someone only counts as an American if they are legally an American citizen. So I'll be very curious to know how you surmount those obstacles in logic, but I'm open to new ideas.
My family knows what it's like to be targeted as outsiders.
I can imagine, and I'm sure you'll tell us shortly. Thank you, Picala Driving Ant-Man. Hit the like button. Scribe tortures himself for us. That's right. I torture myself for you. Did she say systemic? Did I miss that? Did she say systemic? I apologize if I missed that. Maybe I was too overcome with the... let me back up a little bit.
About us versus them.
Yes.
And it's more than just prejudice or bigotry.
Right.
In the United States, it's been built into our laws, our politics, and even the very definition of who counts as an American.
Yeah. That's... I mean... If she says nothing else about systems or institutions by the end of this, yes, this will count. So make a note of that. But I'm waiting for the specificity of those terms to be used. Thank you, Mike R., because only Americans are xenophobic. Well, she's talking about our laws, our politics, and so on, which, yeah, okay. So anyway, her family, this is going to be a family anecdote. I'll circle that as soon as she gets into it.
My family knows what it's like to be targeted as outsiders.
Yes.
This is a photograph of my grandparents' much-loved restaurant in Brooklyn, New York. It's where my mother and her sisters would go every afternoon to make egg rolls.
Okay, so family. All right, going to the bingo card. First circles on the squares, we're going to get free space and childhood or family anecdote. So we are 2 up on the board. Moving on.
And to work the cashier.
Yes.
My grandfather was a huge fan of, can you guess it, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Uh-oh. And there's why the applause is so thin, because as far as I can tell, there's only 4 audience members, which, you know, given the circumstances, I do not lay at the feet of the speaker necessarily, but that's why. FDR, you say? I'm going to guess internment camps. Yeah, not exactly the finest hour of our country's history, to be sure.
He named his restaurant the New Deal.
That's clever. That's clever.
The irony was that he was a Chinese immigrant, and he couldn't vote for FDR or anyone else because U.S. laws prohibited Asian immigrants from becoming naturalized citizens.
And those laws are obviously still in place and still in effect. Correct? I mean, I understand that they were, but obviously they still are, right? Because we're as xenophobic now as we were back then. Is that, I mean, that must be where you're going with this.
It's like America thought my family were dangerous outsiders who didn't belong and were unfit to become citizens.
That is one interpretation, I suppose. And we obviously still think that way, right?
My family story echoes those of so many immigrants from across the United States.
Yes, because the laws of the past were not kind to people from other countries. It's true. There's no denying it. There's no apologizing for it. I mean, you can apologize for it, but it's all retroactive. Yes, all these things are true. Yes. So we treat immigrants, legal immigrants, exactly the same today as we did back in FDR's time. Right?
We know their experiences from their photographs, from their letters, from their poems, but also from the stories that they're sharing today. I'm a historian.
Okay.
And I know it's so important to connect these dots between past and present.
Connect the dots, sure. As long as you're not just gleefully skipping over the evolution of society, culture, and laws between dots. That's all I'd ask. But I often don't get that.
Because they help us understand how we got here, what's changed, and what hasn't.
Okay, well, I'm curious to know what has changed and what hasn't changed. Of the laws in place that affected your family back in FDR's era, what hasn't changed? Do tell.
So let's start with how we got here.
Okay.
The United States is known as a nation of immigrants, right?
Yes, it is known as that, true, because a lot of how we ended up becoming the country we are had to do with people coming here from other places, yes.
A country that has welcomed almost 80 million people.
Really? Welcomed 80 million people from, well, obviously not here. Okay. Xenophobic, right? Okay. Thank you, Bacall, the Driving Ape Man. She's a historian. Shouldn't she know why her Chinese father hated Japan post-World War II? The world of this broadcast exists only around the presentation and what we are told. Anything outside of that is obviously irrelevant. But, you know, anyway.
Over the past 200 years, people like my family and perhaps many of yours.
Okay. So, I mean, the laws were different, obviously, and compared to where they are today, certainly unfair and unjust. So, okay. Yet your family was still welcomed here. Your grandfather opened a business here. So, xenophobic?
But the United States is also a nation of xenophobia, meaning
A nation of xenophobia. Welcomed 80 million people, a nation of xenophobia. Okay.
But the United States is also a nation of xenophobia,
Right.
meaning that we have feared and even hated almost every immigrant group that's come to the United States.
Why? Why? I mean, okay, and for those of you at home who aren't listening or aren't watching this, I should say, there is a photograph up now of a political cartoon from 1903, and it shows Uncle Sam climbing up a sort of reef wall of rock as a wave of riff-raff immigration, as it says, comes in. And Uncle Sam is conceivably trying to defend or protect a mural on the rock that says, "Danger to American ideas and institutions." Okay, so why are we concerned sometimes about people coming here from other places? I mean, is it because of just hatred of the other, or is it economic concerns or crime concerns or other things that go on? I mean, is it just hatred of people, or is it the unknown of people coming here unchecked and unregulated? There is a balance to be struck, yes, but it's not all irrational fear. I wonder if our speaker will at least acknowledge that there are rational concerns for unchecked immigration or illegal immigration. Thank you, Lady Gopher, for the Dogcat Fox. Big smiley Dogcat Fox. You like that, don't you, Dogcat Fox? Wowie, wow, wow. Yes, Dogcat Fox liked that a lot. All right.
U.S. government records show that we have actually removed over 57 million people since 1882. That's more than any other nation.
57 million? That's it? That's it? I thought, okay, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I was under the stark impression that under Obama's administration, he deported many millions more than that number from the country in his 8 years. What? Really? Is that it?
So to say that our relationship with immigration is complicated, that's an understatement.
Well, wait, why were they removed? Were they removed because they came here illegally? Were they removed because they were here legally under a visa and then violated the terms of their visa in some way? What do you... What? Okay, leaves out vital context. I have a feeling she's not going to go back to that, so I am circling leaves out vital context. No. That's trudging on God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. All these people were removed. We have a complicated relationship with immigration or with the xenophobia. No, you didn't tell us why they were removed. Were they removed for cause? Or are you trying to say they were removed for hate? Because I don't believe you.
This is because our immigration history reflects both America's promise, but also its failures.
You're going to need to get more specific. Are people being removed for unjustifiable reasons under law? And I do say under law, because whether it is pretty, whether it is something that we are proud of at this point in time, the laws of the land were the laws of the land at the time they were in effect. So, at the time they were in effect, I should say, were people removed legally or illegally? I mean, justly, unjustly, it's a rose-tinted glasses. But if you're not going to provide context, I'm sorry, you're being a very poor historian here.
And let's be clear, It's also about race.
Asian Hippie says, Obama deported 2.5 million approximately, scribe-like. Okay. For some reason, I thought it was a much larger number. Okay, so if she's talking about in aggregate over all that time, that still seems like a very small number for that span of time. But then, I don't know, maybe that's accurate. All the same, the fact that she did not specify why they were removed and just left it hanging in the air that they were removed because of xenophobia, because of irrational hatred, because of apparently now racism. Okay, well, justify to me that it's about race, or otherwise I'm circling, make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason.
From the very beginning of our country's history, white America defined Native Americans and African Americans as others, as outsiders, and has discriminated against them.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Terrible things were done to Native Americans and African Americans. It's true. There's no denying it. I'm not making light of it. I'm not going to be facetious about it. It's true. And we do the exact same things today as we did back then, of course. We've made no changes, no evolutions, nothing in our culture, our laws, or anything to this point to try to improve ourselves for the future. At least tell me you're going to acknowledge that we do not exist in the same state of thought, mind, or culture today that we did back in the 1700s or something. Please.
The United States has waged war and cultural genocide upon Native Americans for centuries. It's been 400 years since the beginning of American slavery.
How long has it been since the end of American slavery? How long has it been since the end of American slavery?
But African Americans still remain unequal citizens.
How? In what way? Tell me.
Targets of police brutality. Discrimination. And mass incarceration.
So, every person in jail who is not white is not there because they committed a crime. They are there because they are a victim of a mass conspiracy to simply lock up people of color because they are people of color, i.e. mass incarceration. Black people are targeted by police because they are black, period, for no other reason. Discrimination only applies against people who aren't white in the modern day. Got it.
How we've treated Native Americans and African Americans has influenced how we've treated immigrants.
Legal or illegal immigrants? And do we treat illegal immigrants differently than legal immigrants because, I don't know, they've broken the law?
This is because xenophobia is a form of American racism.
I need a drink. Okay, great. America's xenophobic and racist at its core. All right. Now, I know there are a lot of arguments in the chat for squares to be circled. I'm going to give it a little bit more time. Trust me, we have time. I'm not being ignorant of what some of the things that she's implying here, but I'm waiting for some specifics. That's all.
It identifies certain immigrants as the good ones.
Yeah, the ones who follow the law. Yeah, the good ones, quote unquote. Yeah, legal. Yeah, the ones who don't break the rules, the ones that are here legally. Yeah, those immigrants are the good ones. You're right. We do distinguish between good and not so good immigrants. You're correct. Wow, I cut her off. I apologize.
Form of American racism.
Uh-huh.
It identifies certain immigrants as the good ones. You know who they are. They're the non-threatening kind with the fun accents who contribute to America.
Yeah, contribute to America by following and respecting the laws of America, by going through all the procedures necessary to become a legal resident and or citizen of the country. You know, those immigrants. Those legal immigrants. I feel I feel guilty in a way for having to repeat myself because I'm sure many of you have already heard this story, but more than one of my coworkers, people in my real life, I have witnessed from the sidelines go through the procedures of coming to this country legally to both reside here and eventually become citizens. The system is a mess. I'm not going to deny it. It has got some gobbledygook to it. I'm sure a lot of the steps involved were put there for good intentions to verify and so on. But sometimes it is such a labyrinth that it seems unfair. However, whatever mess the immigration system might be to come here legally, the fact remains, my coworkers, my friends came here legally. They followed the rules. And the fact that they went through all the hoops and all the strains and all the canceled flights and having to refile paperwork and everything, it just causes me to have more admiration for them than anything else because they put the effort in. They worked for it. They earned it. They followed the rules, no matter how punitive sometimes those rules seemed, and perhaps very much are, depending on the circumstances. But that's the difference between legal and illegal. That's the difference between a citizen, a neighbor I would prefer to have in my neighborhood than someone I wouldn't. Someone who I at least have a notion that they respect the laws of the country in which they reside, just like every other citizen is expected to do. Okay. Thank you, the Redneck Ram. Is there another upload of your video on climate justice, racial justice from the other day that got blocked by the TED fools? If there is, I didn't do it. I'm waiting to see if TED is going to do what they've done a couple of times in the past, and that is release the video from being blocked and just monetize it so that any ad revenue that comes from it goes to them, which I'm fine with. I don't have a complaint about that. They want to do that, that's fine. I don't monetize these videos anyway, so I'm not making anything off of ad revenue because there's no revenue to be had from ads on YouTube anymore, if there ever was for a channel as small as me. So yeah, but if it's not released, I mean, it's got 30 days on the clock before it gets released, I guess, without protest or something. But if it's not eventually released, I may upload it to BitChute or something as a backup, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay, yes, the good immigrants, the legal immigrants. Tell me about the bad immigrants.
And then, of course, there's the bad ones. These are the ones who don't speak English, who don't assimilate, who are a threat to the country.
Whether or not they are a threat to the country depends on the circumstances of their behavior. But besides that, yes, they're the ones that did not follow the rules. I wonder if our speakers ever looked at the legal requirements, or at least the basic legal requirements for someone to come to this country and become a citizen legally. There is a requirement that they are able to read and communicate in basic English. There is a requirement that they have an understanding of the laws and history of the country, that there is at least the effort made to mildly assimilate. Yes. That they actually respect the place in which they are coming to live and be a citizen. You're right. These are very small things that are expected of most citizens, and certainly expected of someone coming here from somewhere else wanting to be a legal citizen. And yet our speaker just flippantly derides these things as somehow I don't know, irresponsible or irrational things that maybe we prefer, or any other sovereign nation would prefer of someone coming to their country to live? Thank you, tall person. I know you are going to read this. Okay. Happy National Increase Your Psychic Powers Day. I can watch live. I will watch later. Well, see, I am attempting to increase my psychic powers by guessing ahead of time of where this talk is going. I'm being presumptuous. I'm being a bit snooty or arrogant, perhaps. But then, at the same time, you might call it a educated guess, given how many of these things I've watched. But you never know. I might be surprised.
We have welcomed and even recruited the good immigrants. We have banned and expelled the bad ones.
If you are going to flip the words legal with good and illegal with bad and make bad an unjustifiable judgment call on the basis of society, you have lost the argument before you've begun.
It's been a matter of national origin and religion, class, gender, sexuality, but especially race.
But especially legality. At any point in this talk, excuse me, are you going to define the difference between a legal and illegal immigrant? Are you? Historian?
This was true when our country was first founded, and it's true today.
Tell me of the laws that ban people from coming to this country based on their religion, based on their race, based on their gender, based on their orientation. Tell me where in immigration law it says, thou shalt not become a resident or citizen of the United States because you are either a female, or you are of this religion, or you are da-da-da-da-da. Tell me where it says that in law. Tell me.
So let's take a short walk through history.
A short walk through history. By all means, give me a truncated view of reality.
To see how this works.
Okay.
It's the 1700s.
The 1700s. 300 some odd years ago. Got it.
And Germans are suffering for months on crowded and filthy ships. They're headed to the colonies. They're looking for land and economic opportunity.
Yes.
But when they arrive, they're labeled swarms of swarthy aliens who herd together.
Oh my God. In the 1700s, you say? Was this, just curious, was this the colonies? So before America was even America. Oh, that far back, you say? All right.
Who said this?
People from the 1700s, people from 3 centuries ago or more. That's who said that. Tell us who said that.
None other than one of our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin.
Oh my God. Well, hell, you know what? Everybody, cancel America right now. Go on to Twitter, go on to Facebook. America is canceled. A founding father who has been dead for over 3 centuries said nasty things about people. Oh my G, guys.
Samuel Morse. You may know him as the inventor of the telegraph.
The inventor of the telegraph. Gosh, how long ago was that?
He actually wrote a book that called Catholic Immigration, a Foreign Conspiracy Against the United States.
Oh, isn't that quaint? Isn't that terrible? Gosh, we would never do something like that today. Like if the person were, say, Chris Pratt, who's a Catholic, and apparently Catholicism is evil again. Oh, you know what? Maybe our speaker's right. maybe we really haven't advanced as far as I thought.
There was a minister in Boston named Theodore Parker. He called the Irish the most ignorant and barbarian race.
Well, I mean, look at that picture. It kind of looks like Ranting Monkey. So, might still have a point about Ranting Monkey. I don't know that I know anybody else who's of Irish descent. Oh, wait, that's right, me. Oh, never mind.
These immigrants were considered to be such a threat that riots broke out in American cities.
Which never happens anymore.
One of the deadliest happened in Louisville, Kentucky in 1855.
1855? Wow.
This is when 500 citizens tore through the streets, attacking and killing foreigners.
In 1855.
That day is still remembered as Bloody Monday.
By who? I mean, maybe it's a thing in Kentucky. Anytime I hear about bloody anything, I think Bloody Sunday because of U2 and their song and the incident that they were referring to in Britain. But, okay, Bloody Monday in Kentucky or... All right.
The Chinese were the next to come. They first came to try their luck as part of the California Gold Rush. Later, they were recruited to build the country's first transcontinental railroad.
Yep, and they were mistreated like all get out. It's true. You're not going to get me to argue that the dark days of American history, xenophobia, racism, slavery, and so on and so forth did not happen. I'm not going to deny that. Can't deny it. It's true. Our country has a lot of black eyes that will never really be able to wash off because, well, history. However, is our speaker going to get back to that part where she said the changes that have taken place? Because there have been some very major societal and legal confessionals over the years to our previous bad behavior. Will she at least acknowledge those, I wonder?
But when that work was done, lawmakers and labor leaders shouted that the Chinese must go.
Yep, you're right.
The threat was considered to be so great that in 1882, the United States passed the Chinese Exclusion Act.
In 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act, which is still in place today and is looked on with such respect and wonder. Correct?
This is where we see the difference that race makes.
Oh.
The Chinese Exclusion Act was the first federal law to single out an entire group for exclusion based on their race and their class.
I believe you. And we do that today. Right?
Chinese were barred from becoming naturalized citizens. They were beaten, they were killed, they were driven out of cities and towns from across the US West.
I believe you. These things happened, and they were terrible. How are you here? How are you a historian? How are you standing on a TEDx stage in Minneapolis?
And they were deported.
I can believe that too.
Chinese immigrants detained at the Angel Island Immigration Station in San Francisco wrote poems of frustration and despair on the prison walls. You can actually still read this one at the museum there.
Wait. We have put those things in a museum. Why? Why have we enshrined those things? I mean, why would we do that? It couldn't be to remind ourselves of a time where we were worse than we are now, could it? To be a warning to the future of the darkness of our past? Well, why would we do that? Xenophobia is at the core of America.
It reads, "From now on, I'm departing far from this building. All of my fellow villagers are rejoicing with me. Don't say that everything within is Western styled. Even if it is built of jade, it has turned into a cage.
Wow, that is very unflattering to the United States in spirit and sentiment. Why would we enshrine such a thing if we are so xenophobic and care not for the past or remembering the worst parts of ourselves? I don't know.
The Exclusion Act was law of the land for 61 years. But
oh, so it's no longer law. Oh, okay.
in the 1930s, all other Asians were also barred from the United States and from becoming naturalized citizens.
Uh-huh. I believe you. I believe you are being correct.
Soon, immigrants from Southern, Eastern, and Central Europe were coming. They were also looking for economic opportunity or, like Jewish families in Russia, freedom from persecution.
Uh-huh.
When asked why he was coming to America, one Jewish refugee said, "In America lies hope."
Uh-huh. And look at all those people lined up in front of officials coming to the country legally. Uh-huh.
That hope may prove futile, he said. But here the fears are certainty.
Yes. Things were very much different back then than they are now. It's true. Will you acknowledge that?
It was refugees and immigrants like him that helped to inspire Emma Lazarus's poem, the one that is inscribed at the base of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
You know the one.
Yes.
It starts, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free."
Yes, and that is a very wonderful poem. A poem, not a legal dictate. Sentiment is not the same as law. Hate to sound harsh, but it's absolutely true.
But a growing number of Americans believe that these immigrants and refugees were dangerous. A group calling itself the Immigration Restriction League called Italians the most ignorant race of Europe.
Wow. Sounds like a bunch of assholes. How long ago was this again?
National magazines published stories on the so-called Jewish invasion of America.
How long ago was this again?
And guess what? The Ku Klux Klan got involved.
Oh, the Ku Klux Klan, boy. And as we know, the Ku Klux Klan is a seriously influential power in America today. How long ago was this again?
They were busy organizing campaigns of racial terror and white supremacy targeting African Americans, but they were also anti-immigrant and anti-Semitic.
Oh my gosh, white supremacy. We are on the board with white supremacy. And guys, I know that there is a lot of stuff that she said so far that counts for squares abstractly. I'm still waiting for certain words or phrases or things to be said directly. But just to be sure, let's go over the card real quick. Takes credit for something done, experienced by others in their demographic. Not yet. Systemic, institutional. Again, she's all but said the words, but not yet. Equity, not yet. Toxic, no. Plays victim. She's talked about her own family. I'm still waiting for something more direct. We'll see. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. Again, unconscious bias, microaggressions. She's all but used the phrase. I have a feeling a lot of these squares will have to be redressed at the end of the presentation. Privilege. I don't believe she's used the word. Contradicts own point or argument. Not that I've detected so far. Of course, she hasn't really gotten to a point yet. We'll see. Patriarchy, no. Weightless example. I mean, all of her historical examples, so far as I know, have been accurate. So they haven't been weightless to her argument. Wage gap, no. Feminism, no. Marginalized, marginalization. Again, she's all but said the words. A list, it's arguable that she's given us a list of different things. Again, I'm going to wait. Word salad. Again, arguable. Self-vilification or wretchedness. In no way has she self-vilified or wretched herself. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. Well, in the context of the historical laws that ruled our immigration system, she is not wrong to bring up race. In that context, it was not for no reason. We'll see where she goes with this. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. No. Mind reading assumes motives. Yes, I'm circling that one because she's saying that America today is super xenophobic, so on and so forth. What we consider bad immigrants versus good immigrants without talking about the legality of it, or at least allowing for the possibility that it is a law argument and not a racial argument or something. Benevolent condescension, not yet. Anecdote that probably never happened. She hasn't given any that I felt so far, at least, have been out of bounds. So what we have circled so far: childhood or family anecdote, free space, white supremacy, mind reading assumes motives, and leaves out vital context. There are a lot on the board that we could circle in aggregate by the end of this if she does nothing else, but I'm going to wait.
In the 1920s, they published this pamphlet calling for a vigilant protection of America for Americans.
In the 1920s, you say? And what exactly is the strength of the KKK lobby in the 21st century? How powerful a force in directing American politics and policy are the KKK in the 21st century, might I ask?
Against the flood of foreigners coming to the United States.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we can see how white supremacy, racism, and xenophobia work together in groups like the KKK.
I think it's pretty much assumed that white supremacy, xenophobia, and racism are a part of the KKK milieu, for lack of a better phrase. So, sure, you don't have to do a whole lot of work to convince me of that.
But we can also see it in our immigration policies.
Oh, our immigration policies today, or our immigration policies from 100 years ago?
By the 1920s,
100 years ago. Okay.
the United States is leaving the doors open to immigrants from Northern and Western Europe.
Uh-huh.
But we're restricting immigration from Southern, Central, and Eastern Europe, and we're shutting the door altogether to Asians.
Wait, so we were restricting immigration from Southern Europe? Southern Europe, you mean like where a bunch of white people are? Oh, but they weren't considered white back then, right? Is that why? Are you going to tell us what the at least stated public rationale was at the time? It's probably not going to make any sense today. I'd be curious to know, but you are a historian, correct? Context is important, isn't it? Comparing and contrasting then to now is important, isn't it, historian? Thank you, Redneck Ram. Someone should tell her the more she demonizes whites as evil, the more she makes people like me say, quote, if I am to be damned either way, then I might as well be the thing I am damned as, unquote. A real cynic could look at it that way, I suppose. That is not how I would recommend you look at it. I would look at it as someone who is, for some reason, I won't try to be a mind reader, for some reason, really, really, really wants people to be worse and not provide the benefit of the doubt of a century or more worth of cultural change, shift, and opinion. So, yeah, she doesn't speak for me. She's not describing me. We'll see where she goes with this. She's working her way up through time. And unavoidably, she's going to have to address the fact that the laws, the policies, the beliefs of the past no longer apply. Now, how she's going to characterize those changes, if she does, I'm very curious to find out. Thank you, Cryptic. She doesn't speak for me. Doesn't speak for me either. She is speaking for herself, her own perspective as a quote-unquote historian. And I say quote-unquote because a real historian, in my book, provides context as they proceed through historical reference. She's not doing that.
The U.S. Border Patrol gets established. Pretty soon it becomes a crime to enter the country without documentation.
Pretty soon it becomes a crime to enter the country without documentation. Was it legal to do that prior to 1920? I don't know. I don't know. I am not a legal historian like our speaker purports to be. Was it permissible in the 20th century? We'll just start from 1900. I'll give her an extra 20 years. Was it permissible in the 19th? The pepper jacks hit me pretty hard at this point. Was it permissible in the 20th century from 1900 forward to enter the country without documentation, without checking in, without doing anything? I don't know when the immigration laws that effectively require someone to get their papers went into effect. So is that really so surprising?
These laws last for decades.
Yes. And they stopped at some point, didn't they?
And by 1960, immigration is at a historic low in the United States.
By 1960, okay, well, we've at least entered the latter part, effectively, of the 20th century. Okay, immigration was low in 1960. And then?
But in 1965, something fabulous happens.
Oh, something fabulous happened in 1965. Okay, what was that?
The civil rights movement helps to usher in a new law, one that reopens the United States to new immigration.
And who passed that law? Who signed that law into effect? What was the color of those persons' skin, might I ask? And the only reason I ask is because you have made that relevant to the conversation.
We have immigrants from Asia, Latin America, and Africa coming to our country again, transforming our nation.
Oh my gosh. Well, how could we possibly do that? We're a nation of xenophobes.
They're students, they're workers, they're doctors and family members.
Are they also law-abiding immigrants by any chance? With papers? Maybe?
And they're also refugees fleeing another war.
And we make accommodation for people fleeing places of crisis, whether it be natural disaster or war zones. Do we not have that written into our laws? People fleeing war zones and natural disasters who come here legally, well, are here legally. So, yeah.
One refugee described their plight.
Yeah.
I was born in Vietnam into
Yes.
a world at war.
Yes.
We lived and breathed war. We dreamt of peace.
Yes.
Eventually, over 1 million refugees from Southeast Asia were resettled in the United States.
Well, really? Why? Why would we do that? We're a nation of xenophobes. We are ruled by xenophobia and racism. Oh, why would we do that? Okay. And just on that note, I'm circling contradicts own point or argument. I mean, if every other example she's given us to this point of people coming here and living here and thriving here, even if at the time that they came here, the laws were far more restrictive, far more racist, etc., than they were now. The idea, the opening argument is we are a nation of xenophobes. And yet, as far back as the 1960s, we were welcoming and resettling people from far-off nations at war. Why would we do that?
But at the same time, other policies are making it even more difficult for immigrants, especially those from Mexico, to enter the country.
More difficult, but not impossible, you say. Okay. Do tell.
So a growing number come without documentation.
A growing number come illegally, you mean? Can you find it within yourself to use the word illegal? Law-abiding immigrants and illegal immigrants. There is a distinction. There is a difference. Why is that so impossible for you to denote? I can imagine why, but then I'd be a mind reader.
An immigration backlash rises.
An immigration backlash? What does that mean?
With politicians like Patrick Buchanan, who describe Mexican immigration as an illegal invasion of the United States.
Well, if he was talking about people coming here illegally, I'm not quite sure what you mean in response to that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Pat Buchanan is no saint by any stretch of the imagination. But unless you're going to give me more context to that, his simple phrasing, is it inaccurate to what you're talking about? If you're going to be giving a pass to people coming here in violation of our laws?
The U.S. begins its war on illegal immigration.
You said it! Oh my God! I'm honestly surprised. She actually said the words, even though she gave air quotes around it because somehow illegal immigration is a fiction or something.
The U.S.-Mexico border gets militarized, and growing numbers of Mexican and Latinx immigrants are arrested, detained, and deported.
Because they were coming here illegally. And do you know why it's becoming more militarized? Do you know that everybody attempting to cross the border illegally is not just some poor person looking for a job on the other side of the border? Are you going to acknowledge the drug trade? Are you going to acknowledge the human trafficking trade simply on the basis of bringing people across the border for money, if nothing else? Are you going to acknowledge the dangers for patrolling the border that the Border Patrol undertake every time they go out there? Are you?
And then comes 9/11.
And then comes 9/11. Wow, okay. Tell me about 9/11.
Islamophobia, the fear and hatred of Muslims, rises.
The fear of people coming into this country unchecked and unverified rises. You are correct. You know why? Do you know why? Because the 19 hijackers came into this country, and only in retrospect, if more had been done in regards to their entry into the country, red flags would have gone up, and maybe 9/11 could have been prevented. We'll never know. But in retrospect, there were plenty of reasons to be suspicious of the 19 hijackers who came to this country and murdered 3,000 people. So, you know what? I don't know what to tell you. A certain level of paranoia, a certain level of reform was certainly justified. But never mind the actual reasonable concerns. It was all racism. It was just America waiting for an excuse to be xenophobic. Boy, oh boy, thank goodness for 9/11 to allow us to be xenophobic again legally. Wow. I can only imagine that's where you're going with this. But I'm not a mind reader, so proceed.
There are some Americans who blame all Muslims for the terrorist attacks.
There are some, I'm sure. I don't disagree. There are a lot of people out there who have a very limited imagination about other people. How many is some?
Some politicians deliberately fuel Islamophobia as a way to get voters to the polls.
How many is some?
The FBI reports that anti-Muslim hate crimes rises by 1,600%.
Just because of 9/11? Well, I can believe it. It's not good. It's not justified. I'm not going to defend it. So, yeah. Is that still true today?
Today, xenophobia is as strong as it has ever been before.
Horse hockey. Absolute horse hockey. I did not grow up in a neighborhood with people from all over the place operating the same way as a kid would have in the 17 frickin' hundreds. Horse hockey. Give me a break. I will not argue the historical events and laws that have occurred in this country that have demonstrated a lack of understanding of other people or xenophobia or hatred or racism. It all happened. But to say that we operate under a similar or exact same mindset today in the realm of outsiders as we did in the 1700s or even in the 2001s, horse hockey.
Current policies under the Trump administration include the Muslim ban.
It is not a Muslim ban. If it was a Muslim ban, tell me why Saudi Arabia was not on the list. Go ahead. Tell me why Saudi Arabia was not on the list of restricted countries. I'll wait for you to explain that to me. Tell me why Iraq was taken off the list if it was a Muslim ban. Tell me.
The wall along the U.S.-Mexico border.
We have had walls and barriers along the U.S.-Mexico border for many, many, many years, crossing many, many, many administrations.
And a near end to our refugee resettlement program.
A near end, but not an end. Why? How much? What was the justification? We're not resettling refugees anymore? Any more details you want to give us? Near end. How near is near?
During the current coronavirus pandemic, we're actually demonizing the very people who are keeping us safe, like public health care workers who become victims of anti-Asian hate crimes.
What? What? I need some references for that one. I'm backing up a couple seconds because I want to make sure I heard that correctly.
End to our refugee resettlement program. During the current coronavirus pandemic, we're actually demonizing the very people who are keeping us safe, like public health care workers who become victims of anti-Asian hate crimes.
Okay, you know what? I believe that someone or some number of people have been the victim of hate crimes because they're Asian after the coronavirus pandemic. I'll believe it. Is that common? How many of those incidents are there? Does it constitute an actual crisis? I don't know. I'm not being facetious. I don't know. It's a very offhanded thing she just said that sounds exceedingly bizarre to me. But why would it seem bizarre to me? We are a xenophobic country. It should just be old hat, right? Why would I stop the video? Oh, obviously, I'm being dishonest about my own xenophobia, and I'm just virtue signaling, I guess.
Or undocumented meat packers who lack safe working conditions just to get food on our tables.
You know why they lack safe working conditions? Because the people who would employ people who are not here legally and take advantage and exploit people who have no redress under law without risking their own residence in this country, yeah, they're breaking the law. They have no problem breaking the law by employing illegal immigrants. Why would they have a problem breaking the law in safety conditions? Those employers should be prosecuted, and the people here illegally should be deported. You're right. The people who would do that to illegal immigrants are criminals. But the illegal immigrants are also criminals.
We're continuing a tradition that has deep roots.
A tradition. The traditions that have been legally outlawed and vilified in our culture over the course of 300 years? Okay.
History shows that xenophobia has been part of our country since the very beginning.
Xenophobia is a part of some portion of every country from now until the end of time to the beginning of time. Some portion. How much is some?
It's one of the ways in which race and racism works in America.
You're right. It is one of the ways. In America, and Canada, and Brazil, and Europe as a continent, just to save myself some time. You're right. Wow, that is some amazing insight, isn't that, Dog Cat Fox? Wowie, wow, wow. I know. I feel so edified.
And it's not going to go away anytime soon.
You are absolutely correct. The worst behaviors of humankind will always be with us. You know how I know that? Because we have laws that penalize it.
But history also shows that xenophobia hurts us all. It is not just something that happens to immigrants. It feeds division, white supremacy, white nationalism. It furthers racial discrimination.
Uh-huh.
The stakes could not be higher.
Okay, what are the stakes? I've been waiting 12 minutes and 58 seconds. What are we talking about?
And we must all take action.
Will you please spell out the stakes over which we are to take action to either prevent or achieve? I mean, please, you've got 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
We must advocate for immigrants and refugees. We must
legal or illegal? Stop saying immigrants as though that covers both demographics equally. It does not. One demographic follows the law, the other demographic does not. That is a ridiculously important distinction.
We must challenge ineffective and cruel laws. And yes, we must vote xenophobic politicians out of office.
Okay, what laws need to be changed? I'm open to it. Like I said, I witnessed, again, on the sidelines and only sort of peripherally, coworkers and friends of mine go through the immigration process, the legal immigration process. I got the barest notion of some of the ridiculousness that takes place during a legal immigration process. I am willing to believe that there are laws and or policies in our immigration system that could do with a review, and/or overhaul. Tell me what they are. Give me some specificity. I am open to believing that there are problems that could be solved, that there are inefficiencies that could be rectified. I'm open to it. You need to tell me. Blanket abstract statements do nothing. Blanket abstract accusations against the character of the country, which you have all but had to admit has changed over 300 years, doesn't help me.
But in order to fight hate, we must do more. So
like what?
that's why I'm going to call on all of you to do something.
Okay, fine. Call to action. What am I supposed to do aside from voting out politicians that you're accusing of xenophobia without providing any kind of evidence and changing laws that you've not specified as being unjust? What am I supposed to do?
Sometime today,
Yes.
tomorrow,
Yes.
this week,
Yes.
I want you to ask yourselves this question.
Okay. I love asking myself questions. I'm actually a reflexively, unwillingly fervent participant in self-doubt. So what question shall I ask myself?
What am I doing to challenge xenophobia and racism?
I am not xenophobic and I am not racist. Was that too quick and simple? Was that too quick and simple? I have a feeling that was too quick and simple a statement to make.
In my job, in my community, in my family.
In my job, I am appreciative and admiring of my coworkers who they or their families before them came to this country legally, went through all the hoops, and did everything that they were asked to do to follow the laws. So I'm not xenophobic. I do not judge people on the basis of their skin color. I assess them on their behavior and on their character. Therefore, I'm not racist. And that kind of applies at work, in my family, etc. So I am a living representation of the kind of people I hope surround me. That's the best I can do. It's the best most of us can do. Although, given your speech so far, your accusations and your implications, I really have to wonder, how much are you doing to combat those lines of thinking? You've made me suspicious. I'm sorry. Not of you because of anything about you, save for what you've said and the declarations you've made. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Imagine a world where people are willing to break the law and risk everything to enter a rampantly xenophobic country and be discriminated against, ... Yeah. That's why people come here in droves, because it's a terrible, terrible place to be if you're not from here originally.
Let me share with you how I've answered this question.
Oh, I am honestly curious. Do tell.
I'm lucky. I'm an educator.
You might be lucky. I'm not sure if those who study underneath you are so lucky.
Many of my students are first-generation immigrants. And
how? How are they first? Shouldn't the xenophobia be preventing them from even existing in your classroom? How are they for what?
Refugees.
What refugees? How could they be refugees? I thought there was the near elimination of resettling refugees. What?
I know that their stories are not yet part of the history books.
What?
I know that there's no archive that holds them and preserves them for future generations.
I'll tell you what, lady, you're lucky as a single human being to have anything you have done in your life be recorded in the quote-unquote history books. I'll tell you this. 99.9% of your students now and into the future will never be recorded in the history books. I will not be recorded in the history books. Hell, I'd wager that you will not be recorded in the history books. Because most of us, 99.9% of us, just aren't that interesting. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Statistically, we live in the safest time of human history among the most accepting regions of the entire world. We're inventing dragons to slay. Yeah. Compare how we operate today to the 1700s. And yeah, I'll tell you what, it was a pretty dark and dire time back then. But doesn't that make the contrast all that more stark as to where we are compared to where we were? And why is our speaker seemingly unwilling to acknowledge any of that? I can only guess.
I feel that it's my job to change that. I need to help them tell their stories, because if they don't do it, who will?
Okay, benevolent condescension. Her students are incapable of speaking for themselves without her help. Circled that one.
And if there's no archive to hold them, then we need to build it ourselves.
You want to build an archive to hold the history of every J-random student who comes across your path, but only those J-random students who are first generation and or refugees and or just immigrants to this country? I guess I don't count. Okay.
So that's why I created the Immigrant Stories digital storytelling project with my colleagues at the Immigration History Research Center.
Oh, this is a sales pitch. I mean, of a kind. Of a kind. Ah.
It helps anyone, anywhere, create, preserve, and share their stories for free.
Oh, okay. Well, it's free. So good on you for running a nonprofit. And I'm not being facetious. Great. That's fine.
There are now over 350 stories in the collection. Some of them were created by my students, but most by strangers from across the country.
Really? And you're allowed to build and maintain this in a country as xenophobic as it was 40, 60, 300 years ago? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Scott J87. Can we start a museum of wokeness and put her in it? Oh, trust me, there are museums out there that are already doing it. They're just not called the wokeness. Just trust me.
Let me share two of them with you.
Okay, I'm all ears.
The first is Tiago's. Tiago talks about what it was like to grow up in this country as an undocumented dreamer.
Okay, well, first off, the DREAM Act isn't actually law, so it's just, sort of a sentimental euphemism at this point. But okay, so his parents brought him over into the country illegally. His parents are criminals. Got it.
The hardships he faced, the struggles he had.
And all as a result of his parents' decisions. He would not have had the struggles or hardships he faced if his parents had not brought him here illegally. Got it.
But also the joy that he felt when he finally became a legal permanent resident and got that driver's license.
Thanks to American laws. Laws admittedly implemented under presidential fiat for now, but all the same, American law and policy, which his parents violated, has provided him a pathway to a better life. And just to clarify, I have no problem with DACA, fundamentally, in spirit. I have a major problem with how it was implemented, but DACA, the DREAM Act, kids that are brought here against their own will, volition, or knowledge of the consequences by parents who are willing to break the law, yeah, they should not be penalized in the same way that their parents should be. All the same, he is benefiting from the same set of laws that his parents broke. Are you going to mention his parents? Their responsibility for the welfare of their own child in this instance? Are you? I doubt it. Thank you, Zalbla, for the Dogcat Fox. Oh, the lovely Dogcat Fox. You like that, don't you? You like that? Let me try that again, Pepperjack. Thanks, Pepperjack. Screwing up my words. You like that, don't you, Dogcat Fox? Wowie, wow, wow. Dogcat Fox likes that.
My time is now, he said.
Yes.
And then there's Liang.
Mm-hmm.
Liang describes how this super hip Sony stereo, she called it, was her family's most treasured possession while they were living in a refugee camp in Thailand.
Okay, a refugee camp in Thailand. You mean the refugee, I'm assuming the refugee program that has been near eliminated or whatever she said? Okay, thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. I'm the child of refugees and people like this make me so angry, must leave early. I realized I'm grinding my teeth. Thank you for the stream as always. Okay, well, don't grind your teeth. Relax, relax. It's just words. I appreciate it. Don't stress out too much. Don't want anybody getting any sort of a PTSD from this. It's okay. It's all right.
And how once in America, they used that stereo to send audio letters back to relatives left behind in Laos.
Mr. Tickletrunk, we've only got a minute left. If you want to leave, by all means, it'll be here if you ever want to watch the rest of it. It's only a minute left, and then we'll get into the catharsis of the bingo card, and then we'll be done.
It's been decades since her family came to the United States.
Since she was in a refugee camp, I'm assuming they came here and therefore legally.
And that Sony stereo is now sitting on a shelf collecting dust, but it is still one of her family's most treasured possessions.
So
these stories and the hundreds of others like them have the power to change the way we think about immigration and challenge xenophobia and racism.
How do we think about immigration today? If you're going to make a statement like that, you have to outline how we think of immigration today. And if you're going to say that you're a historian, you have to admit that our immigration policies and laws have changed, evolved, and improved since the 1700s. But aside from just sort of referentially saying so, you've never admitted this. You have made it sound like we operate today, culturally and legally, the same as we did in the 1700s. I cannot take you seriously.
They're the stories of real people, not stereotypes.
Yes, real people in the 21st century.
They help us see what unites us rather than what divides us.
Really? Because I see what divides us was your first example there. That boy's parents brought him here illegally. His parents are criminals. He has been granted the opportunity to thrive because he was brought here under no fault of his own. If there is a thing in this talk that certainly divides us at this point in time, it is the division between legal and illegal immigrant, which you are seemingly incapable or unwilling to admit to. And instead, lean on the now bygone policies and laws of 300 years past.
We need more creative solutions like these that foster empathy, solidarity, and justice.
Because Americans have no empathy, have no sense of solidarity, and don't care about justice in our immigration system or just culturally. Got it.
So do the work needed.
Do the work needed. Okay. I am a living example of the kind of person I would want to have as a neighbor. I do not judge people on the basis of their skin color, and I am not immediately and irrationally fear of someone coming from another place. I'm not too fond of them if they came here illegally, but that's a whole other thing that you're apparently not willing to address.
To help create this change, we must all work together to build a future that is not about us versus them, but we.
Vilifying the entire population who does not immediately agree with her, apparently. Okay. Well, I've had enough of that as well. I'm with Mr. Tickletrunk. Let's go over the bingo card. Takes credit for something done, experienced by others in their demographic. She talked about her family, but I don't, aside from that, that doesn't seem to apply. Systemic, institutional, yes. She's talked about the laws. She's talked about the policies. She's talked about politicians. Yes. Systemic, institutional is on the board. Equity. She never said the word, so far as I can tell. You could argue that she implied an equality of outcome for immigrants regardless of their legal status. I'll wait and see how the rest of the card goes before I come back to that one. Toxic, she never said the word. Plays victim. She mentioned her family back in FDR's day, and back then they were victims. They were victims of unjust laws. She didn't really talk about herself. So I don't really have any basis for that one. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. Yes, unconscious bias certainly was implied greatly again and again, simply on xenophobia. The concept of xenophobia itself is an unconscious, irrational bias. So taking that one. Privilege. I don't think she ever said the word. And the fact that she did mention that people coming from Europe, whether it was Southern or otherwise, and Italians being hated on, it's difficult for me to say that white privilege was implied even. So I'll need an argument for that one. Patriarchy, no. Weightless example. Oh, she gave a lot of examples of things. Do they end up being weightless? Maybe I'm forgetting something. I might need an argument for that one. Wage gap? No, she never talked about economics so much, at least not in the sense of pay differentials between demographics. Feminism? No. Marginalized, marginalization? Certainly. Marginalization was heavily indicated in her rhetoric. A list. She gave us the things we can do, the questions we can ask. I will circle a list for that amongst the other things that she said. Word salad. She said things that were demonstrably untrue. I don't want to say that they were word salad. I understood what she was saying, so it wasn't all nonsense in that sense. Self-vilification, no, not at all. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. Again, I'm having a hard time circling this one because there were and are reasons to cite race when it comes to immigration laws of the past. Doesn't apply today the way that it did in the 1700s? No. So is that enough to circle the square? Yes. She's not willing to admit that a lot of those things are now literally antiquated and obsolete. Sorry, I haven't refreshed the page here. There we go. There's where we're at right now. Okay. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. I don't consider the name of her website a new buzzword or buzz phrase. She didn't say something like something I like to call or my definition of or something, so I can't really circle that one. Anecdote that probably never happened. Nothing that she said seemed to me as an impossible anecdote or interaction or anything of the few that she gave. So having a hard time with that one. But that is where I am at. Chat, it is now up to you. If we are to reach a bingo of any kind, I'm going to need some really good arguments, because what I'm looking at here, I don't see a pathway to a bingo without an amazing argument. But I am willing to listen. So I'll give it a few minutes here, not too long. We're already 90 minutes on the show, and that's a little bit of about where I like to stop these. So let's proceed. Roger Reynolds, Scribe Light. Didn't a white woman write a book telling the stories of legal immigrants and their reason for coming to the U.S., and she was canceled for it? Wasn't that a fiction book? And I think if I'm thinking of if what you're saying is what I'm thinking of, I should say, the argument was it was a fiction book and the author was white and had no actual direct knowledge of such experiences, and that's why she was canceled. That's not me justifying it. That's my understanding of it. So she told fictional stories. She wasn't like reporting, as far as I know. Ryan, my great-grandparents came over to the USA from Norway. Great-grandpa had a doctorate in botany. His kids all got college degrees. They integrated into society. Legal immigrants, legal. Yeah. Following the laws and the rules. Now, like I said, my coworker, I know, or let's say I don't know, but I mean, I'm aware, at least peripherally, of the kind of ridiculousness he had to go through, both to come to this country, to reside in this country, to become a citizen of this country, bring his family over, start a family, have a successful career. I have so much admiration for that guy because of the hoops he had to jump through. Some hoops, I will not deny, were archaic and probably unfair. But the fact that he did so anyway, and with grace and with patience, I mean, I really have to wonder, would I have behaved in a similar fashion if I were under those same circumstances? I don't know. But that guy did. And he's got all my respect. I don't know what to tell you. People who come to this country legally, seeking either a better life or more opportunities or just a change or whatever. If you come here by the rules, even if you come here as a refugee from a natural disaster and go through all the hoops necessary to just live here, I don't know what that's like. I hope I never know what that's like. You know, there but for the grace of Cthulhu go I kind of thing, right? Doesn't look down on somebody because they're an immigrant. If I'm going to look down on somebody, it's because of how they behave, how they treat other people or themselves, or respect the laws that all the rest of us are expected to follow. Just like I would any citizen who does the same. If there's a citizen who breaks the law, I have less respect for that person because I expect better of the people who live around me. Can you believe it? Let's see. Mike R., have you thought about having maybe multiple bingo cards, one for each category topic of TED Talk? I have, but that is kind of stacking the deck. The idea is to have a bingo card that on any particular day contains the kind of elements that we expect from TEDx Talks. I switch it up from time to time just for variety's sake. But to say that I had a bingo card specifically for restorative justice, that'd be stacking the deck in the favor of bingos for that TEDx talk specifically. And I don't like that. I think that takes away from the element of chance. So that's my reasoning for it. Also, it'd have a lot of extra work I'd have to do in deciding like what arrangement of words or phrases would specify this TEDx talk versus that TEDx talk. And you never know. You really never know. Let's see. Renovatio. People have to follow the immigration laws of any nation they seek to enter. Immigration laws must also reflect the will of the majority of the people in those host countries. If not, you generate xenophobia. Yeah, if you're not sure about what is required of people to be here, then you become more suspicious of everybody that you see who, quote unquote, doesn't look like they belong there. That's part of the reason we have a legal immigration process. So that 9 times out of 10, I don't have to wonder if this person is not aware of, or at least does not have some kind of respect for, the laws of the land, regardless of what they look like. I'm not seeing any arguments for other squares, so I think we might be almost done here. Let's see. Zalbla, my cousin's grandparents legally immigrated from Mexico to the U.S. legally, and the Mexican families I know hate those that come here illegally because it hurts them. Yeah. Talk to someone who has gone through all the hoops, followed all the laws, respected the country and the process enough to become a legal resident or citizen of this country. Ask them what they think about people who cheat, who cut in line, who don't follow those same laws, who expect some kind of special treatment or special consideration after they've already broken the rules. I'll bet you, dollars to donuts, they are not very happy about people who think that way or behave that way. Let's see. Well, I don't really see any arguments for other squares. And honestly, I'm looking at these. Maybe there's a weightless example in there somewhere. And maybe someone could argue for word salad. Sure. But even then, that wouldn't get us a bingo. So guys, I think I'm going to call this here. We'll see if TEDx or TED or whoever decides to let me keep this broadcast. The next 10 minutes after this will tell. But regardless, everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I would not have gotten through it or processed it the same without you here. I appreciate all of your attendance, participation, and certainly thank you so much for your generosity. I'll use it all to put horrible things into my body like goldfish crackers and Jack Daniels, another of which I might need after this. If you would like to hear more from me or the Ranting Monkey or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find all three of us tonight on the Ranting Monkeys channel for the Lords of the Night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, where we'll talk about the news of the day, news stories that you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, I hope you all have a great Saturday. I hope you all have a safe and very fun Halloween. I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Granted, Ted allows me to do so. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.